I'm Matthew Kurbis, the subscription attorney, and this is Law Subscribed, your dedicated source for all things subscriptions and the law. Thank you to my sponsors. See links to them in the show notes. Everything discussed is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Enjoy the show. I'm thrilled to have with me today some entrepreneurs in the legal space, in the fractional GC space too. Jeff, Brooke, go ahead and introduce yourselves to the listeners.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'll kick it off. Thanks so much for having us, Matthew. It's a pleasure to be here. Brooke and I, we're married, and we run a law firm called Intellectual Strategies. It is a fractional legal team that we make available to small startups and scaling businesses, mostly in e-commerce and SaaS and what I call deep tech. I'm the attorney. I've been practicing for quite a while. If you count the time I was a patent agent before I went to law school and then graduated in 2005 from law school. So we've been doing this for a while, and we've been doing the fractional model since about 2018. And we can get into all of that and more throughout the show.
And we will. Brooke.
Thanks for having us here, Matthew. This is our first podcast together, so I'm new at this, so appreciate the opportunity to be here. I've worked with Jeff in the law firm since 2019. I have a specialty in operations. Give me a vision and I will do my best to implement it. So I think we complement each other, and it's been really fun to build our firm together.
And Brooke, before you were helping out at the firm with Jeff, had you worked for other law firms or legal practices in any way before?
No, my specialty, as I mentioned, is in operations, and I was starting in 2017. I was working in some different capacities, and Jeff was looking to hire, and he's like, why are we doing two separate things? Why don't we do this together and build it together? So it's been a journey, and it's been fun.
Yeah, and it's good to have 20-something years under your belt, Jeff, because my wife and I talk about, hey, would it be interesting if you worked for my firm one day? And it's like, well, I've only worked for myself for 3 years, and she is a traditional corporate gig, and the security is kind of nice. But even saying all that, there's been this movement it's not necessarily new. It depends on your perspective, but 5 to 10 years where some legal coaches, some coaches for lawyers are saying, you got to bring in people that don't have the background in law into your practice so they could focus on the ops stuff. So that's a thing. And because lawyers, we have this trouble with thinking about things the way they've always been done. And by bringing in outside people, whether you're married to them or not, is encouraged. So let's just start there with, what's it been like working together, husband and wife, and bringing in Jeff, for you, what's it been like to have that outside perspective?
First off, it's been great. And I'm not just saying that for the audience and the participants here. It really has been great. Brooke she's been a participant, although at a slightly greater distance for, the whole time. I went out on my own after being in Silicon Valley for a few years, and in 2007 started my practice. And it had a couple iterations, and then I went in-house thinking, I'm doing all this patent stuff and I want to get into more of a general counsel role. So I went in-house and I transitioned eventually into what became, maybe accidentally even, this fractional role. So she had seen that the whole time, seen the different iterations, and I knew from a lot longer ago than 2017, 2018, that she was way more organized than I was. I'm trying to do the law, I'm trying to manage clients, I'm trying to do some marketing, I'm trying to recruit people, and as you know, it is that there's like 4 different jobs you're trying to do all at once. So it's fantastic having somebody else come in, take some things that they're better at than me in this case, off my plate, and really manage our, we got 4 other attorneys, a couple staff, and she just manages all that really well. It's fantastic.
Thanks, Jeff.
Do you concur, Brooke? Yeah. What's the experience been like for you?
Yeah, I think, if you're familiar with having different roles, right? Different specialties, Jeff is a great visionary. He really has this big vision, but I think sometimes the implementation can be a little more difficult. So that's where I come in. Do we have differing opinions? Absolutely. At times it can be the meeting of the minds, right? But we own other businesses outside of our law firm. And what I know is that having someone in your business who cares about it as much as you do is critical. And that is something that Jeff and I have been able to do, because this is our livelihood, and we care very much about our clients and the experience they have in our law firm. And that's something that at the end of the day, we always come to the same agreement. That's what we care most about.
Yeah. So, well, that's good to hear. And I think it's encouraging for listeners who they just have lawyers working in their practice, and they're considering bringing in outside people? I guess first look to your partners and look to the people in your life, especially if you've experienced working with them in the past. But Jeff, going back to you, let's talk about this origin story of the fractional GC work, of the subscription model. And first of all, before you went in house, were you billing hours? Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, so I started in Silicon Valley at a patent boutique firm. So my background is in electrical engineering, was a patent attorney, still am a patent attorney, and I was doing patent work. A lot of patent work, the transactional side is billed on flat fees. You have a
Hmm.
project, you do a utility application, a provisional, whatever, and you're billing kind of a flat rate. Not all firms do that, some will bill hourly. But I did a lot of projects at flat rates in two different firms that I was in, one before law school and during law school, and then another afterwards. I loved it. I love talking to inventors. There's this quirky nature to inventors that you have to kind of get used to, but I've got an engineering background, and so I can just kind of slide into that mode pretty easily. And as I was doing that, I'm seeing my clients. Let's see, I went out on my own and I was doing a lot of flat fee stuff at that time.
Hmm.
Sometimes these odd projects come through and we're like, oh, well, we don't know what the scope is going to be. We don't know exactly what the timeline. Maybe we'll bill this one hourly. But it was almost predominantly flat fees at that time. And then when
Yeah.
I
th-
oh,
that's very unusual that you were, for so many years, you were just doing that. But so it was easier for you then to think about this. Oh, I'll let you continue with the in-house experience.
oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. No, it's a great pause because I think it might be unusual in the legal field overall, but it's less unique in the patent side.
Hmm.
I kind of grew up, if you will, doing patents for like IBM and Intel, and they have these really structured patent guidelines. They have case ratings, and they give you certain cases, and or you sometimes, in the case of Intel, you'd bid on these cases or packages of cases, and so you really had a set flat fee for one case or multiple cases based on the quality that they wanted from you. So at least in my experience, when I was working for those types of larger clients, they had really structured, fixed pricing models that just flowed down to us. I couldn't have changed it if I had wanted to. So I
So
think you'll
did,
see that
but
more
did
with
you
patents.
did you look at then how can you do the work equally as good but faster? Like were you already thinking about that, in that mindset back then?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I saw a model where an attorney was leveraging. I started because I was a patent agent, essentially an electrical engineering student, or I think maybe I'd graduated by that time, and he said, "Hey, come write some patents for me." And I'm like, "I don't know what that is, but okay, sounds good." And so I was writing for him, and he was getting a little leverage off me, and so I'd seen the model, and he was doing flat fees at the time. Uh, and we all have that thought, well, if he can do it, I could probably do it, right? How hard can it be? So I'd seen the model, and it's a good model. So when I started doing it myself, I thought, well, let's leverage this, right? And that's one of the reasons I probably wasn't in Silicon Valley too long, because when I got to the firm, there was a lot of structure there, a lot of hierarchy that I wasn't used to and didn't necessarily want to fit into. Some people have called me ungovernable before. I think it was a compliment, but it's accurate regardless. And so when I was there, they're like, "Oh, well, you can't bring this client in, or you can't charge this way. You got to do my work, not your work." And I said, "Well, that's not really what I want to do. I want to go out and build something, kind of be a master of my domain more so." So when I went out, it was really an easy transition to go back into that. Hey, let's pick up some work from some IBM labs. Let's do it flat fee. Then let's maybe hire a few people to help write those cases and train some staff. I think I got into a little bit into what was that called? Dragon Speak or whatever it was, one of those really
Oh yeah,
early.
dragon dictation.
Yeah, voice to text. It was not good. It was a steep learning curve, and a lot of technical jargon from, engineers did not work out well, but we tried it, so we were looking for ways to scale and always improve what we did.
And then
So
Brooke, I'm curious to know if ever in your professional experience, did you ever have to bill hours, track hours?
Yeah, I do. I have, and it's a pain. I understand the pain points of it. If you're not keeping up on it, going back and recreating your time, it's a beast. I for sure empathize with that.
So then so then the practice takes shape in more of its current form in 2018.
mhm.
What did you have in mind when you launched it as far as the billing model and the relationship with the clients?
It's a great question. So leading up to that, I had gone in-house with a company that was here in Utah, a tech company. They'd raised $70 million. They needed to replace their current legal person with somebody else. I came in, I'm a solo legal guy in the company, flying to China, helping with Chinese entities. I was supposed to be the IP guy, right? But when you're the only guy, first thing they hand you is a sales contract or NDAs or investment stuff or whatever. You get everything, right? I was there, good job, loved working with the team in a lot of ways. When they moved to North Carolina, they said, "Hey, we're gonna transition to somebody who's got more business or whatever experience." I said, "That's fair. It's probably a good time for me to step out. I'm going to stay here. I'll help you find your new GC." And what I thought was 2 or 3 month transition turned out to be like a 18 or 19-month transition before they actually hired somebody. And in that meantime, what I had done, just to kind of bridge the story from flat fees in patent practice early on to after this law firm, the 2018 timeframe, I said, "Hey, well, I'll do this scope of work for you." We had some arrangements. They wanted to keep me on at essentially the same salary, and I said, "That's fine. I'm gonna have other clients, but I'll do this slice and this slice and this slice." It was like, "I'll review all your contracts. I'll take care of these certain things, and then if you need patent stuff or you need trademarks or you need your corporate governance investment stuff, that'll be an add-on to that." So it really was kind of a straight retainer essentially for a slice of work and add-on stuff for the rest of it. And it's not that I wish I could say, "Oh, I planned this and it worked out really well." I didn't plan it, but it still worked out really well. And that kind of led into where we're at now, going from a solo fractional GC into this team approach, which I think is a lot more scalable than a solo practice might be, with companies that are growing and needing more of you, and you become more and more of a bottleneck than a solution sometimes.
Right, right, and so then the add-on work, that was at fixed rates because you were used to doing that at fixed rates, or was that hourly? What was that like?
Oh, I had to split it. I had to, patents and trademarks were easy to do flat rates because I'd had that model beforehand. When they needed me to manage their cap table or do corporate governance stuff, that was just hourly, and so I'd track my time at that point. So I had kind of a mix of billing approaches, even with this one client, from retainer to flat fees to hourly, all depending on the type of work I was doing.
Then even temporarily, even skipping ahead to modern day, looking at managing 3 different business models, recurring, classic retainer, AKA subscription, hourly and fixed fee. What was it like to have to be in the mindset managing 3 different billing models at once?
I never looked at it that way. I do agree with you that it is 3 different billing models. Um, for me, it's always been, I go back to kind of my engineering roots, and I'm like, well, these pieces all fit within this bigger system. There's this system that I need to kind of manage. And this is maybe a downfall why it's really good to have someone like Brooke on board to say, quit trying to solve the whole puzzle at once. Just, do these things and we'll get to the next stage. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, this piece fits in here, this piece fits in here, and this piece fits in here. So to me, it did seem kind of natural. I'm like, well, we'll just do what needs to be done for each of these types of work. And I didn't really question a whole lot. I will say, if we fast forward even more, I've talked to Brooke quite a bit. And I've said, "Hey, what if this year we just get rid of the hourly rate?" That's a conversation that's ongoing, and we'll see where it goes. But we do have who aren't on retainer yet, but maybe might get onto retainers at some point. So we've still got a mix.
All right, so we're gonna come back to that conversation you and Brooke are having about even just getting rid of the hourly rate altogether. But Brooke, coming back to you now. So it's 2019. You're coming in. You're helping out Jeff. What are some of the first things you, the integrator, does at the practice to streamline this process and get things in the right track?
Well, we set the whole system up from scratch, so we can talk about the technology we use, but what
Yes,
we
please.
what we knew, so I feel like there's a few things though. Jeff did not mention he got his MBA during this time frame before he went in-house, and I feel like that whole, way of seeing himself, so he's been an attorney on the outside, now he's on the inside of a company, and he's outsourcing some of the patent work, and it's kinda like he realized, attorneys don't necessarily act in the way a client needs you to act. And so, Jeff, I don't know if you want to go into that a little more, touch on that briefly, but
Sure. I mean, the story is, 2 weeks into my job, my in-house job, I'm like, "Oh, I've been practicing law the wrong way for 15 years. I've been doing it like they told me to do it in the law firm because they had their model, And when I get into in-house, I'm like, well, that's not what these guys need. They're fast-paced. They need these quick answers. They don't need deep research. They just need me to kind of be involved and touch a lot of things at once and give them really quick advice that's directionally accurate, even if not complete all the time. And so 2 weeks in, I thought, "Oh, I'm doing this wrong." A year later, I in some other board meetings, I thought, "Oh, if they ask me this question, they're gonna fire me next, and then I'm gonna have to do something else." Because there's just this learning curve of what they need, how they interact, even in a small team, the executive level politics, the board level politics, and then the intermingling of the 2. It's a totally different environment. I kind of when I tell friends about it, I'm like, "It's like having a baby," if you haven't had a baby, you see it from the outside and you're like, "Oh, I think I understand what that means." And then you have a baby and you're like, "I had no idea what that means." And then you have your second baby and like, "Oh, this is even different." So there's just these things you have to experience to really grasp, I think, the mindset that goes along with them. So I think that's what you're talking about, Brooke.
I am, and that's a great lead in to kind of where I'm leading in, that this new law firm we're creating, it wasn't going to be a traditional law firm. It's a business. And so everything we did from the get-go was to build this like a business. So we didn't use the normal law firm software. We've used monday.com. We've created an incredible system on there. The thing I like about monday.com is that we have contractors that work with us. So they have certain access to what they're working on. They don't have access to everything, which works out really great in our system that we do. And we just did it all from scratch, and it was all built around this idea of building a business, but also being able to interact with the clients in a way that I don't feel like attorneys and law firms necessarily can. And that comes back from Jeff's origin story of being in a law firm where, they don't want you to. They want you to work on their clients, not yours. They don't want you to go to speaking things, right? Jeff was getting invited to go speak at things, and some law firms were like, "No, we want you to be in the office, FaceTime," right? So all of these things that we've built, it's come together pretty great. I think it's unusual. I think our system's very unusual from a typical law firm.
Do you have any custom software, or is Monday able to sort of power most of the back end?
We've
I don't.
done we've done Monday. It's if
Yeah.
I can jump in here. Yeah, Monday has really worked well for us. Brooke does not have like a computer science background or anything, but Monday has been very accessible for us, and she's done a lot of program. We brought somebody in to help with a little bit more intricate automations in some of our onboarding processes, and integrating with Make and Calendly and Jotforms, and just getting the flows correct. But it's been fantastic. We used Lawmatics for a while and we liked it, but it got buggy as they grew. And we looked at some other softwares in our IP heavy field. There's a lot of IP docketing that happens. And so we do have a kind of a simplified docket. We looked at other really robust docketing softwares, and we looked at Clio, and it really didn't feel like it fit what we were doing, because we're not that contingency big case type firm, and we're not strictly hourly, right? We're not just bill your time and that's the end all be all for our clients. So we did have to, because of the systematic way and the different kind of divisions we had to build something that worked for us, and it's come together really well.
Yeah, okay, so you mentioned Make, you mentioned Calendly, you mentioned Jotform. So any other tech that you wanna throw out there that you're playing around with, that you're using? Are you integrating Stripe with Monday for payment processing? Like, what's your payment
We
processor
No,
use
like?
we do
we use
QuickBooks.
LawPay. Oh, well, we do
LawPay,
Oh,
QuickBooks,
QuickBooks.
and
yeah.
LawPay is our processor. Mhm.
And we use a few. I mean, we integrate with Zoom, we integrate with Webflow for our website, we integrate with Rebrandly for some link shortening, and there's maybe one or two others. When I Because I'm not good at keeping track of all that stuff, when we brought in the person to kind of put all of our onboarding processes together. If you get on my website, you can see my calendar. It's not, I mean, it's nothing like stratospheric, right? But it works really well. And you get on my calendar, you can schedule a 30-minute intro call. It does all the emails. We have a strategy call, we have a follow-up, we have notes, we send out packages, we send out engagement letters, kind of what you'd expect, right? But we've built it in a pretty simplified way on this stack that we've got. And I said, when you're done with this, would you please just put down in one of our Monday boards the tech stack that we're using and the information that we need for each of those logins and stuff. And so he was able to do that for me, which keeps me on track and lets me hand stuff off to Brooke a lot easier.
Yeah, and look, if you're I mean, if you're watching this video, maybe open this up in another tab, or if you're just listening, you go to intellectualstrategies.com. It's great you got the .com. That's pretty good. And like you can check this out. The website I think looks super smooth. All right, it's got a
Thanks.
great sort of, color feeling to it. Like I'm using blues for Law Subscribed, and there's some blues in there. And the video too. That's actually on my 2025 roadmap is having more videos on the website. And it looks like you're doing that really well. Did you I don't know, did you always have videos from the beginning? Did you see any sort of different in
Oh,
conversions when you started adding videos?
we had a terrible website that I built. I am not good at design work, just like I'm probably not as good at some of the organizational stuff in the firm. So we hired somebody out. Brooke found a contact that she knew through a friend, and we brought them in, paid them a fee, and they did all that for us. It's totally worth it. You should totally put some videos on your website. I think it feels more friendly, and I get the same compliments. So I appreciate you sharing that. I get the same compliments a lot from people who are either in the law or clients who are coming in, or even marketing friends who's like, "Oh, I went to your website. It looks really great." Now I look at it as if I had painted my house by myself, and I'm like, "Well, I see that spot and I see that spot, and there's some things I want to change here and there." But I'm really pleased with it, and it does function. It's quite smooth. It doesn't break often because it's not really tech heavy, but it's a nice way to do it. And the person that we used, his name's Shane from, I don't even know if he's doing this anymore, Brooke, but he's a
I
great
know.
friend of ours, great to chat with about just marketing things and all things really interesting, I'd say. But he just had some great ideas, and he's like, "Let's make your business really accessible." And I remember he was like, "Oh, you know, he would pull phrases out and be like, I'd say stuff and he'd be like, "I really like that. What did you say about bankable assets?" And I'm like, "Oh, your IP is really a bankable asset, blah, blah, blah." And so he would pull those out and make sure they're there. So he did a great job, but we're satisfied with it. Like some of the improvements we want to make.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you always wanna be iterating, right? So when the clients are onboarded through the website,
Mhm.
like, do they have a do you have a portal in Monday? Like, how do they interface with you at that point? Is it just over email? Like, what's the client attorney interaction like?
It's pretty structured. We don't create a portal for any of our clients yet. But that's one thing we might add to our roadmap. But it's really simple. It's a Calendly, view my calendar, pick a date, do a really simple form. You could see all that if you're just on the site now. After that happens, we then send out a strategy questionnaire. It's a little bit longer. It gives us, because we have, we're not just IP. It's like, do you need corporate stuff? You need patents, trademarks, you need fundraising. And we ask a little bit about what their roadmap is, because our next step then is to take that, do a conflict check, and have a call with them and say, what does your business do? Where are you headed? What are your major milestones? Because we want to figure out how we align our steps and our team with the milestones you're trying to hit. Okay, if you're doing launching a product, you got these things. If you're, bringing on investors, you got these. Same thing that we all know, but that's what leads into the conversation. After that, we're like, I almost always from a conversation will say, "Let me send you our engagement letter." But there's a second step. Then that step is we're either going to talk about, this is where I got to divert down one of these paths, right? We're going to talk about a flat fee. We're going to talk about a retainer. We're going to talk about hourly fees. And if it's a flat fee, we usually have packages for it. And we've really tried to be super transparent with our clients. Say like if you want a provisional patent application, we've got a basic package, a plus package, and a premium package. If you want an entity form, we've got a basic plus premium. If you want a trademark, basic plus premium. It's really structured in a way that tries to educate the client, but also give them the ability to pick what meets their needs at this time. Because we don't always know, are they budget driven or are they innovation driven or something else?
Yeah, and so I see here that you have the integrated legal counsel as one of these options, and it looks like you got, the 3 options underneath that. Now, at least right now, and, everything's subject to change, these episodes are recorded in advance, there's no public pricing available, but if somebody's filling out your questionnaire, they fall into one of these categories, do you already have you already know what the pricing's going to be based on how they fill it out, or do you customize it based on how they fill it out?
No, we have some basic packages. So if I was on a call with a client right now, in fact, I've got a call after this. He's reached out, fill out his strategy form, says I'm interested in your fractional legal team services. It's probably a 7-page document with a little matrix on the front that says the basic includes this plus premium and explains all that. So I've got those. We of course can customize that as needed, but they're great starting points, and it allows us, because one of our core values that we've had is leadership, right? We don't want to just dump a bunch of information on our clients and then say, what do you want to do? We want to be able to lead them in the legal side of the business that they're doing. So we want to
Yeah.
make a recommendation, and this is a great starting point for that.
Yeah. So there are two more things I want to cover at a high level with the time we have left. Now that I know you got a client call right after this, is so I want to talk about the team because it's not just the two of you and what you're doing
Mhm.
with like outsourcing and contractors or full times and stuff like that. And then I also want to talk about, you mentioned retainer and what that looks like versus are you still tracking hours and billing against? Is it an earned fee? Like that structure. So, choose your own adventure, Jeff and Brooke. Which route do you
Yeah.
want to go down first? Team or retainer model?
I think they tie together, and I think Brooke would love to talk about them because having a team leads into a conversation about how we pay our team, how we compensate our team, how they track their time or not. And so, Brooke, take it away.
There's so much to go over. It's hard to know where to start. So, two things. I think in a traditional law firm, my core belief that I think probably aligns with yours is that having billable hour requirements kind of pits you against your client, right?
Mhm,
Because you're
mhm.
billing your client, but if you've got to meet your hours and your work's a little slow, you're like, man, I'm going to spend some extra time on this, whether it's needed or not. We don't need to go into that, right? But I do. So none of our contractors have hourly requirements. They just work with us on a contract per project basis. We have established, is this Jeff? Is this what I should be getting into? Like we just have established fees we pay them. And
Mhm.
can you do it by this deadline? And that's kind of how we work with our attorneys. It works great. It allows them to take as much work as they want. And it allows us to scale because one of Jeff's main goals is not to be the only person doing legal work. So we love to use the expertise of our team, bring them on board, and have them help our clients.
No,
Team?
let me jump in because I don't think I think there's a part that would help. So when we pair contracted attorneys, and some of them work for us mostly full time, some are more part time. It just depends on what they have available, right? But we pay some of them hourly, and then some of the stuff that we have project based fees on, we just pay them part of the project fee. So we also on our back end pay our attorneys hourly and or flat fees. So there's kind of that mix there on the cost side of the business.
That was my follow-up question. Good job, Jeff. That was what I was gonna
Great.
ask because you have established
I've
fees.
Yeah, I've listened to a few of your podcasts. I knew what you wanted.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's motifs with the questions I ask. So then, Brooke, then going into the fees and how you structure that with the clients in terms of, this retainer model, is it a true retainer, like a classic true retainer, meaning that they pay it and they get the scoped services and use it or not? It's like use it or lose it? Or are there hours that are billed against and reduced from the retainer that they replenish every month? How does that work?
So we do have some retainer clients, not all of our work. I think Jeff's established that. Some of it is a flat fee, right? And that would be it's done. But some of our clients that are retainer, we bill against it. And then whatever is not used, it can go back to them. It can be held on to for future legal work. But I like to see, so in my opinion, this kind of gets down to, I guess, my core value with this is that having retainers, having flat fees, or having a subscription model, they're just different tools, right? They're different tools in our toolbox. And I like being able to customize what we're doing to our clients and it was something that works well for them. I've had my own personal experience where I was seeking out possibly hiring somebody. He wanted flat fee, and there was really no scope to it. It was kind of like, so what am I paying for? They obviously, as attorneys, you can't make guarantees. And I was like, I'm not paying that, right? Like if he had offered me hourly, I probably would have. But I like having the flexibility to be able to meet our clients where they are so that we can customize what we're doing in a way that makes sense for them and for our firm.
Here's my perspective on like billable hours, whether you're using retainers or not, is the clients don't call you until they have no other choice, or they hold off and they wait and they hoard those hours because they know their retainer is like up to a certain amount that could be billed against. They have certain requirements to like refill it. I feel the same way even with attorneys who are doing true subscription, but they're saying it entitles you to 5 scheduled calls. Because even in Calendly, you could say there's 5, you can make a unique Calendly link for every client. They have a limit of 5, every month that they could use because you limit 5 per month. But then they hoard those uses, right? So whenever there's a metered use of any kind, your clients don't contact you. And so by even giving them this option, those are going to be the clients that you have the least deep relationship with. Versus if you give them a pure subscription, if they're already going to be using you like that, where it's a scoped amount of services every month, And you just have to make sure that they know that if you've unbundled your service and you charge them a flat fee for every single interaction, they're getting a bargain, even if they don't use all the scoped services every month. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of cases where obviously we do because we have a subscription model where right where our clients pay us a flat fee. I think there are some areas of law where that's a little harder to do. I Litigation is
Like
one of
what?
them. Litigation.
Which one? Okay.
Litigation. We do some
Okay.
litigation. And I think that's a little there's so many unknown variables that I think it can be a little tougher to do a subscription on that unless you were going towards milestones. But I think the scope has to be there, the milestone needs to be there, and you're working within that construct. And so I think kind of the takeaway is that there's a framework I think to use in applying this to clients in a way that makes sense. And Jeff, I think you've talked a little bit about some of that framework.
Yeah, I love hearing Brooke say milestones because I've been pushing for that. So maybe are you saying you've agreed to my proposal, Brooke? No, so, but I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to, it's how do you break this down, right? What is the framework you use? I will say on the subscription retainers that we do with our fractional legal team clients, we track hours internally, but we don't necessarily report them out to clients, right? We'll track them so that we know kind of what the usage is roughly. If they want to, if they want some type of accounting, we can give them an accounting just because we're doing it internally. But we don't send that to them on a monthly basis. Say, oh, by the way, you do whatever. We're very much in the mindset that you mentioned early on, either in the podcast or before we started recording, which was, everything kind of evens out, right? Like we're in it for the long-term relationship. And we very much want people, because we're a team, we want them to think of us as the team down the hallway. Poke your head in Jeff's office. Hey, I got a quick question. Poke your head in somebody else's office and just ask that question. It's baffling to me why, as attorneys who are, we're experts in communication, apparently, supposedly, we have created the most barriers to actually communicating with us. And it's by communicating with us that we get the work. So it's really undermining in a lot of ways. And one of the reasons that I'm pushing, let's see how we can create frameworks for maybe moving some litigation stuff into milestones, you know, reviewing contracts. I like that you've got a framework there. It's, by the page. I haven't quite adopted that because I'm like, we do some really simple and some really complex and, but maybe it just evens out. You know what I mean? So
I think it does, because if you think about it, there are like, how much is boilerplate in contracts, right? And now, don't get me wrong, boilerplate matters,
oh
right?
yeah.
Like which jurisdiction, which venue, which applicable law. Like it's easy, but it matters, and there's value there. And then there's indemnification that you might go back and forth on a few different times, right? So like, there's certain pages in a contract that might take up more time. Although realistically, I just tell AI, change it this way, change it that way, and it like automatically like updates it and changes it. And like, it's easy to create a red line from that. So like, it doesn't actually take that much time because I know what I want to see and I just tell the AI, I don't even have to type it anymore.
Yeah.
So like, yes, there's more complicated versions, and I really do think it evens out. And frankly, by the page adds up. Like if you're, and I charge $50 a page, and if I'm working a contract and it's like 30 to 50 pages, like that's decent money, right? Like that's
So
not bad.
So what do you do when that contract gets because I've got one and I'm thinking of it. It's probably it is definitely the outlier, right? It's been negotiated for 18 months at least, and we've gone
Yeah.
back and forth, and we keep getting,
Yeah. Yeah.
the other party just keeps reverting back to things that we've already agreed on. I feel bad for my clients, and they're not paying extra for it necessarily because they're on a subscription and we incorporate all that. But man,
Yeah.
I'm like, I
Yeah.
see that and I'm like, oh, what would I do?
So the way that I handle it is, and going back to the usage mentioned, because you said you track hours for usage. I think regardless of how long something takes, it just ends up being like, what's the value and what's it worth to the client? It doesn't matter how long. So I don't even track hours, but
Mhm.
I do track something, right? I'm either tracking pages or I'm tracking projects. But it's just like, okay, I worked on this project. That's a project. And you have a per project limit per month. And so if something's going for 18 months, that counts against that client's project limit if they're on a higher level subscription
Mm.
every month. Right. So that's just included, but so they don't get a brand new 5 projects every month. They have 4, other than the
Yeah.
one that's ongoing for so many months. And if it's a la carte client and I'm negotiating it, that's another $200 a month during the pendency of that negotiation. So it's a one-time $50 per page payment. But if I'm negotiating it on their behalf, it's 200 a month on top of whatever they're already paying if they're doing a la carte. So it might be like at the least 220 a month. And sometimes if it's back and forth a lot, like you need to talk to me more, we have to bump you up to minimum $100 a month. So now you're at 300, for the premier subscription, because that opens up more of my availability on the calendar to talk to you and to talk to these other lawyers. Because you're only getting me at the end of my day at $20 a month. Right.
I
And so
see.
that gives me a reason to bump people up to a higher monthly subscription. And then if it's a small business, it's like, what are you doing paying me all this money when you could pay me, $1,000 a month, and I could also do other work in your business other than just this one contract. Right. And I could start helping you with other things. And we just bundle this ongoing negotiation into it. So I could bundle it in, and it just gets them back on a higher subscription. And am I giving up more value in the short term? Yes, probably. But in the long term, they're going to stay a subscriber for longer. And so I'm happy to give up short-term value for more lifetime value.
So you use the tiers then to really bump them, bump that membership level as kind of a starting point.
Right. And then for litigation, I do know there are litigation attorneys who like they say, what's your budget for this? Okay, let's divide that by your annual budget for litigation. Let's divide that by 12. And you're going to pay me that every month until we're resolved. And I've heard of that. I think the best way to approach it is just like with some software, if there's like an onboarding fee, because you got to integrate stuff and do other things. When you get a case, whether you're plaintiff or defendant, there's a lot of stuff that happens up front. So you do a higher fixed fee, lower than that initial fixed fee, you do a monthly rate. And there's a scope, right? This is assuming, okay, we're going to have 5 depositions. We're just going to assume they're all going to go 3 hours each, whatever your maximum is. There's going to be so much discovery. Like you think there's, you don't know what's going to happen, but there are only so many different ways things could happen in litigation. And in your engagement agreement, we have a change of scope clause, just like your contractor does if they're coming to do work on your home and they find mold and they didn't know that there was going to be mold. So yeah, so if we find some smoking gun thing and there's going to be 20 depositions and not 5, well, first of all, even if you didn't have that, the case is going to take longer and you're getting that monthly fee. And
Yeah.
so it's still going to take longer. So you're getting that monthly fee. And then you could have at milestones, okay, now we've hit the discovery phase. There's another fixed fee once we hit the discovery phase that's a little bit higher than the monthly subscription because we're going to be doing all this other extra work, right? And so you could schedule it that way. What I like to see, and I do this with M&A work too, is there's a success fee that goes down the longer it takes. And so you are now incentivized as the lawyer to get the transaction done faster, to get the litigation done faster. And if it goes to trial, you don't get that success fee, but you have a per diem or a per week or some sort of thing. And maybe there still is a success fee if you get like a $0 result if you're on the defense or whatever, right?
Sure.
Or
Sure.
like there's creative ways you could come up with that, but having some sort of a diminishing success fee to align your incentive with the client, I think is really important, and it all has to be outlined. The thing though, Brooke, is to your point is that's hard. It's easier to just bill by the hour, but the client doesn't know what it's going to cost and they can't budget for it. So if you're willing to put in the effort to structure a subscription and flat fee hybrid for litigation with a diminishing success fee, depending on the length, I think your clients will be more interested because they're going to know what it's going to cost and now they could budget for it. And it doesn't mean you can't charge a premium, but now they could budget for it.
Hmm. No.
That's interesting. We
What do you
haven't talked about
what do you think?
success fees. Yeah, it's fascinating. The success fee aspect is just not a conversation I've had with clients, so I'm not sure what to expect. Has that gone over well with your clients?
Again, I'm not doing litigation, but in the
Oh,
M&A
the other
space,
clients.
in the M&A space, yeah. Yeah. So, because at the end of the day, like the way that it's set up is sure, I guess if the transaction took 24 months, I could make more money, because like the success fee diminishes to 0, but now the monthly fee is like higher. But
Sure.
now I'm losing that client the moment that the transaction is over. And so the incentives are still aligned for me to try to get the deal closed sooner. And if it's really not my fault, because every time somebody sends an email on that transaction, I respond right away. Because if we get this closed in 60 days, oh boy, and was
Yeah.
my payday sweet, right? And so, and part of the reason why that works is also at the transaction, if there's a lender or something, like a lot of money comes in. And so it's easy to pay that success fee at the closing, but I'm
Yeah.
still getting paid no matter what, which is also the issue with litigation, right? In particular in the contingency fee space. Like even if you charge a de minimis amount every month, like you're still making something, but you just can't take 30% or whatever the
Yeah.
contingency is, right?
We'll have to
Yeah.
look
And,
into
and
that.
so I've been suggesting it for years now, and I've only heard of like 1 or 2 attorneys that have tried it, but I haven't followed up with them on whether or not it's worked in the litigation space. But I was an insurance defense attorney developing this model as a litigator, and that was my formula. and I never got to apply it because I left and started a transactional practice. What do you think? What
Matt,
do you think, Brooke?
well, I'm curious, do you think that you can scale what you're doing now? Do you think you could grow what you're doing and grow a business where you have multiple attorneys working under you or with you?
Yeah, so I don't want to, at least not in the short term, because I don't plan to sell this business for the next 20 to 30 years. When I want to sell the business, absolutely, I'm going to have to do that, right? But in the short term, I want to see how far can I push a true solo operation with AI and automations, and what's the maximum annual recurring revenue that I could get to. And my estimate, my best guess based on the last 3 years is probably $500,000. And that might be with outsourcing a couple things here and there. So it's not like I'm going to be pocketing all of that. And then there's taxes and everything. But like if I could hit that, I actually like that's enough to sustain the lifestyle that we have.
Mhm.
So I don't need to keep growing and to keep hiring. Because yeah, sure, you could be $1 million law firm, but how much are you putting in your pocket? And so that's the number that matters to me, is how much I'm putting in my pocket. And so if I have, 20 clients paying me 2,500 a month, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Do you have any staff?
Zero. It's all automations.
Everything's automated. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that that's one thing in our law firm. We run it like with a profit, right? We have our sectioned out in percentages because, as an attorney, it's tough. You're just trading your time for money, right? You're just in the
Not
business.
me.
Not me either, for the most part.
How are you not, Matthew? I'm curious. That's curious you say that. Why do you think you're not?
So I'll give you an example. I might be like a client might schedule a call with me because they need me to review a contract. And they might even send me the contract in advance. And so I'll put that into Paxton, which is my legal AI tool of choice. And I have some prompts that I like to use and I identify which party of the contract I represent. And I need to know, the main provisions that I need to take a look at right away. And so that's usually like giving it to an associate or another attorney on the team and having them go through it. Well, right now, Paxton is only $200 a month. It used to be $99. So sign up while you can and get it locked in at a lower price. And at the time this goes live, they may or may not be a sponsor of the show, but I've been talking about them forever anyway, regardless of that. And so what I found is since they have a legal specific large language model, it does a phenomenal job at actually like doing what the work of an attorney might be able to do. So now I can, like, even sometimes synchronously with a client on a call, use the AI to leverage a result right away to give that to a client. So they're already booked time with me. I'm able to do the task with them with the power of AI on the call, and it's AI enhancing my own work. So I'm still applying my own judgment. Oh yeah, it's identified that the term might be too long. Well, that's actually useful for my client in this particular instance, right? So we're just going to bypass that recommendation. I'm not even going to bring it up to my client. And I even do research like this live with clients, during a call. Anything I could do asynchronously, I also do asynchronously. So I'm actually able to maximize the usage of my time just because I don't sell my time, but I value my time and I protect my time, hence Calendly, and nobody could schedule calls with me within a day, right? They can only schedule within the next day. And so I will like record videos using this same tech that we're using for the podcast, explaining a contract so that the client could watch it over and over again without having to bother me with questions all the time. And so like, what's my time investment? It's the 15 minutes into recording and producing the video. I share the link with them. They could just watch it a million times, right? Watch as much as you want. And I care about their time. So they could watch it at 1.5 to 2 times speed. So it doesn't take them as long, because the less time things take, the more valuable it is for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And then for little things like my retail practice, because I do represent individuals and random things. They're buying or selling a house. They're doing a simple estate plan. And if their estate's not simple, I like refer them to attorneys that, you could afford because you have a complicated estate and you're a high net worth individual. I'm not the right lawyer for you. It's $400 for a simple estate plan, 1,000 if it's just one trust, 2,000 for a joint marital trust. And there's a revocable trust. If you're trying to do asset protection, you have assets and you could go pay another lawyer a lot of money to do that, right? It's all automated. Like, it takes me no time at all other than to create the automation. And so I'm making $400, 1,000 or 2,000, and the time investment was already invested. And the rest of it is relationship building with the client, in my opinion, if they have questions about the documents that I already know, because I design the automations, right? So like, I'm not spending any time on that, but it's still a valuable product that's priced competitively compared to other things in the market.
That's great.
You can do
Yeah,
that with contracts too. I know Jim Hart does that with
Hmm.
contracts. And trademark stuff as well. So I don't I'm not in that space yet. They're always looking for ways to do that. I know with Gavel, which is a sponsor, link in the show notes, you could productize, legal documents and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll have to check out some of those things.
Yeah.
So,
well, we're running low on time. Jeff, is your call right in a few minutes? Should we wrap up?
it is in a few minutes. Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
So this is what we'll do. I will just really quick. I'm curious to know how you handle the multi-jurisdictional practice of it all, and then we'll end with a fun question.
Multi-jurisdictional practice. Okay, let me begin by saying I think that's an area that's going to change over time. But that being said, because we do patents and trademarks, it's a very core part of our business. We're in federal practice to begin with a lot of our clients. And then many of them are based here, but some of them are not. And, we're always looking to see do we have an attorney that's licensed in a state with a company that's got nexus to one of those states where they're licensed. And a lot of times there's something there. Certainly if they're getting into litigation, we're going to bring in outside counsel, local counsel, most definitely, just because we want the experts on the case there. But we run into it to a large extent. There's plenty of clients that meet our, that match up with us well. And so it hasn't been a significant problem.
All right. Good to know. I'm glad we were able to squeeze that one in and stick around after we say goodbye just for a minute because it needs to upload to the cloud.
Yeah.
But final fun question for you, Jeff. If you listen to the pod and you listen to the end, you know it's coming. So we'll let you go first, and then Brooke will hear from you. Jeff, is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
No, it's not a sandwich because I would never order it off a sandwich menu. That's my only reason.
Brooke.
I concur, no, because a hot dog is its own category.
Okay. All right. So folks wanted to follow up. If there's resources for any of the lawyer listeners, now's the chance to let them know.
Yeah, we do. We're actually kicking off some free masterminds that we're doing just because finding community is so important in this. We did our first mastermind call this morning, went super well. We'll be doing some more of those over time. When this podcast launches, maybe there'll be some availability, but either way, we love to connect with people in the fractional space for sure. So LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Come to our website, just reach out. We're very accessible.
All right. Well, one last time. And again, stick around for a few seconds, but thanks again for coming on Law Subscribed.
Thanks
so much, Matthew.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Make someone's day by sharing this episode with them. The best way to get in touch is to follow and message me on LinkedIn. To get extra content, subscribe to the newsletter at www.lawsubscribe.com, where you can also become a paid subscriber to get episodes and content early. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.